Welcome back to Life Curious Women, and welcome to part 2 of the Easeful Year-End Series. So if you missed last week, we are in the middle of our end of year series. I'm doing a 3-part podcast series that coincides with a workbook that I designed. And the workbook you can get right now in our show notes if you haven't already. And if you've missed week 1, I'd go back and listen to that so it all makes kind of sense. Everything is tied with the workbook, and it's all designed to reflect on this past year, let go of what isn't serving us, keep what is, and bring what is working for us into the new year. And the final piece will be all about looking forward, what we want to reimagine in 2026. And this entire series is designed with your nervous system in mind. So we are not your typical end of year, let's do a vision board, let's rush into our goals, let's start before our nervous system is even ready to think about it or has the space to think about it. This is all about keeping your nervous system safe, keeping it calm. And so that way we are able to really head into 2026 with a clear head and giving ourselves grace. That is the goal of this series. This is what makes this series a little bit different. I talked a little bit about this last week, but for me, I know that in the last couple of years, I really struggled around this time to focus on my goals, to think about the year prior, to actually sit down and journal and look through everything because it's a hectic time. Last December, I was dealing with a lot of burnout and things like that. And so, like I explained last week, I knew that I wanted to do something different this year. And I knew I wanted to provide something different for anyone who's listening who is feeling the same way, who's maybe you know what, I'm exhausted from this year, or I have so much on my plate this holiday season that I don't have the space to make a vision board and make my 30 goals for 2026. And so this is designed with keeping all of that in mind to do almost like a gentle end of year routine ritual. And this is also meant to be done at any point, whether you are listening in December in real time and doing it with us, or you do this in January or February or March even. I know that was something that I did this year. I did most of my goal setting in January. I didn't bother with it in December. So this is totally meant to support you and how it works best for you. So last week we talked all about, reflecting on the year, looking at the year as from an objective standpoint. If you haven't jumped into the workbook yet, that is a little bit about what you will uncover in that section. We do an audit of the year. An audit seems aggressive, but just a gentle reflection of just being what happened this year, not what are my accomplishments this year. Of course those are going to come out, but more so of what even just happened, what happened in March. And so we go through all of what happened and what this year was designed to show and reveal to us. And now this episode is going to be all about figuring out what we need to let go in order to dive into the new year. So let's talk about something that I think for me anyways, I have a lot of trouble with, which is letting go. I am a Taurus, so I like things to stay the same. I like routine. I like to know what's going on. And sometimes life requires us to really let go parts of us. And I know that for me, I'm really being called to let go of certain parts of my identity, which is scary, and hard. And so the only way for us to be able to do that is to actually reflect on what's going on and what's coming up for us to even know what to let go of. And maybe you're very clear on this wasn't working for me this year, but this portion of the workbook and of this series is designed to really help you journal and reflect on the things that did work and the things that didn't work. I think that in general, we teach women to hold it all and carry everything and be everything. I know that I have felt a lot of that weight in the past and currently, and I don't think we really get taught enough how to just let go, how to put things down, how to remove from our plate rather than continuing to add onto our plate. And that has been my journey this year, is learning what can I take away rather than what can I continue to add. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about why do we even hold on to things, right? This is normal. Like, we all do this. We hold on, not because like we're weak, but because a lot of our patterns have really served us in the past. They've kept us safe. They kept us going. I know for me, you're probably tired of hearing this if you've been listening to the podcast, but like letting go of like my need to be productive is a giant part of my identity, and that has served me in a lot of ways. If you listen to a couple episodes ago, I talked all about this. Like, that has helped me achieve a lot of my goals, is being hyper productive. And so, the overachieving has served me, people pleasing has served me, perfectionism, self pressure, all of those things have served me in some way or another. And if you're listening and you relate to any of this, are probably patterns and behaviors that you have continued to take from year after year that continue to serve you and help you in our survival tools. And it's not our fault. It's just how we've been able to survive. And so it's a matter of being able to reflect on that and being able to see, like, almost from like a bird's eye view, what is happening, why it's happening, and then like how do we start to unravel that. Also, as we get into this, I want to share that like you can listen to this episode, then do the workbook. You can also just listen to this episode and not do the workbook and just reflect on your own. But I think that the workbook is really, really helpful in digging in a little bit deeper into all of the things that we're talking about throughout the series. So again, choose your own journey and all of the things. So I really want to talk about, what does it mean to actually like release something? Because I feel like these things are buzzwords. There's like, it's kind of like up in the air. There isn't like a lot of clarity around what that means. So I think what it means to me is not like saying, oh, I'm never going to feel like this, I'm going to avoid that thing. It's more so like, I see you. I see the behavior. I see the thing. I understand the thing, but it no longer gets to lead me. I think that that's where, I think from an energetic perspective, that's what that means. So this year, I've started to release. I started to work on the belief that like, oh, I have to work so hard. I have to almost like suffer in order to be worthy or to be accepted, or this story that rest means laziness, the idea that saying no or standing up for myself makes me difficult. All of those things, like, I am working on all of them. And the first step for me was just like acknowledging it. But I think that the hardest part in this journey is that like no one is aware of this journey that you're going on. It's you on your own. Like, no one's clapping for you. There's no trophy. It sometimes feels really icky in the moment when you do that. But in the end, what you are choosing is to align yourself with your highest good, with your highest self. Your nervous system is going to take some time to catch up, but eventually your body starts to feel that. And I think that like energetically, you're saying, no, I'm choosing differently now. And when the universe senses that, like, the universe will match your energy. All right. So just like part one, part two of this workbook, which is titled Release, as you'll see from the podcast title, is each section will start with a grounding moment. So you'll, in this section, just visualize, something heavy coming off of your chest. And if you're listening, maybe you can do this now if you're not driving or not walking around the city or anything like that. But maybe ask yourself, like, what is something that you are holding on to that no longer belongs to you? And really imagine something like releasing from your shoulders. And you can do the visualization first and then follow up with that reflection, whether you journal about it, whether you just think about it. But I think that, like, what are you holding on to that you have learned to carry, but it doesn't actually belong to you, that it doesn't actually serve you in the grand scheme of things, it's hurting you more than it is helping you. In the first section of part two, there are several journaling prompts that I want you to reflect on. It's all about digging in a little bit deeper. Are there beliefs about success that you're ready to release? Maybe dig into a story from childhood that you're done carrying. A fear that's losing its power. I really love that one. A habit that served you once, but maybe isn't serving you anymore. One of the things I'm working on right now, side note, and that came up for me in that journaling prompt, is for as long as I can remember, have bit my nails. And I, in my, last several years, my 20s, have always had to put, powder or hard gel or gel X on my nails. And I've learned how to do all of the things because I just do them myself. And I have to have nice nails because I'm a commercial actor and I use my hands and I have to show my hands a lot on camera. And one of the decisions I made in the last couple of weeks is I was like, I think I really want to try to grow out my nails naturally, strengthen them, and stop using any sort of like gel or anything on them, and really heal my nails and try to heal this habit. So that's one of my things that I'm working on right now. We're in like week 3 and I haven't been biting them. I've just been painting them. I like looked up a couple of different tools to use in order to do this, but that is one of the things that I am trying to release this year. But anyways, that's a sidebar on what I'm doing. And then one of the last questions is a responsibility I'm allowed to let go of. So, think about it. Think about, like, what are you exhausted from defending? Are you proving something that doesn't need to be proved, that doesn't provide for your worth? What are you ready to stop explaining? And just sit with it. You don't have to solve this right now in this section. You don't have to change it today. Just noticing it, and the first step in being able to release things that aren't serving you is noticing it. And I think that, like, this first portion, I call it emotional decluttering, is literally that. It's just being like, okay, let's say you had a messy room. You're just like, okay, where do I start? Okay, that's over there. That's messy. Okay, those clothes I need to wash, and maybe like we need to do. And you start analyzing the space and what needs to get done, what isn't working, right? And it's the same. This is the same thing here. All right, the next portion is about forgiveness. I know for me, when I went through the process in July of finding out my hormones were all messed up and that like the core source was like this hyper productivity, the damage I had to my body came from emotional wounding, and I had so much grief. Like there was so much like sadness that came with it because I was like guilty that I did this to myself and sad that I did this to myself. Also sad that like I never recognized this prior to that moment. Sad for my high school self, sad for my middle school self, sad for my elementary school self. Like there was just like so much sadness and guilt that I think I'm still processing. And I think that is really important when we start to reflect on what's not serving us anymore, right? In the second section of part 2 is what you're forgiving yourself for. I think this is often missed. I think this is often not ever talked about, actually. Like we don't talk about like, okay, yeah, here are the things that don't work for me. How do I fix them? And we just jump to solutions, and we don't actually acknowledge or talk about the grief or the sadness or the guilt and the forgiving piece, where, okay, you have to like forgive yourself for possibly continuing behavior that is hurting you. So I think we talk about it as like this big dramatic thing when we do talk about forgiveness, but I think it can happen a lot more like quiet than that. I think that that's sort of what's been happening for me. It's not like I'm like sitting there being like, I forgive myself for this. Like it's more so of like through the process of figuring out why I have found forgiveness for myself. And I think it's saying like, I forgive myself for not knowing. I forgive myself for choosing survival, for maybe just surviving, for staying too long, for, trying to make certain situations, jobs, relationships work that aren't meant for me. Like it's finding those small moments to figure out why these things were happening. And I think in the digging around in the why is where you find forgiveness for yourself. And so in that section, you will journal about this, reflect on it. If you're just listening, reflect on this, reflect on the why. And I think that through that, you're going to find that parts of you really forgive yourself for continuing to operate in a way that wasn't your fault. Okay, this next section is kind of fun. Part 3, it is like the cut and keep list. So I have one section is the cut list, the other section is the keep. So on the cut side, we have what is draining, On the keep side, what is nourishing? On the cut side, what is forced? On the keep side, what is aligned? On the cut side, what is performative? And on the keep side, what is authentic? So you don't have to like burn your life down right now. If you're like listening and you're like, oh my God, this isn't working and that's not working. Like, we don't have to burn everything down to the ground. You don't have to become a completely different person. Releasing doesn't mean like destroying and like rebuilding. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it does. But I think that it can be a lot more gentle than that. So it's just thinking about like, okay, what is draining you? Like, what are the things that are draining? Maybe it's people. Maybe it's like habits. Maybe it's like a way of doing things. I know for me, ADHD, like I'm like constantly trying to unlearn guilt around being productive or, consistency. Like I've just learned as an ADHD person, consistency doesn't work. It doesn't exist. Like, and I feel guilty when I fall off my habits, whether it's the gym, whether it's like eating healthy, whether it's drinking water, whether it's my supplements, that's draining to constantly feel like, "Ugh, you're not consistent, you're not doing the thing." That's so draining. And I've been trying to learn how to like just be like, if it's not working, then we need to figure out a different way to do it. Like if taking my supplements isn't working, then I need to put them in a new spot, or I need to put an alarm, or I need to put a sticky note somewhere, or I need to tell, my partner to tell me, hey, make sure to take your supplement. There are ways to like work with yourself in order to like fix the things. And that's just one of the ways. But like, yeah, what's draining you? What's nourishing you? Like, are there people? Are there activities? Is there a way of being that's nourishing you? Is there something that's feeling forced? Is there something that feels aligned? Like, and notice the difference and what that is, and feel it in your body. Like, actually be like, what is feeling aligned? That feels really aligned. If you hang out with someone that when you leave you feel like complete shit, then like that's forced, and you need to evaluate that relationship. And maybe it's a matter of cutting that person out, or maybe it's a matter of like, hey, I need to see that person less. Notice what's going on for you. What is feeling performative? What feels actually real? Does that relationship feel performative, or does it feel real? Like, does that enthusiasm for a job feel performative, or does it feel real? Is there something that you're like, I have to do this, that isn't actually aligned? Like maybe you're like, I have to do content creation because that's the key. And like, does that feel aligned? Does it feel good when you do it? Like maybe that's not the key. Maybe there's a different form. Maybe the Substack is a different, avenue to explore over like being on camera, if it feels like that doesn't even bring you joy. Whatever it is, whatever the habit is, whatever the thing is that you're trying to kind of puzzle piece into your life and it's not puzzle piecing, like it's time to reflect on that. And I think there's so much power in that, in actually making a decision on like what is good in my life, what is feeding me and what isn't. And again, this is just gathering more information for you. Okay, and the last piece I like really really love. It is a letter to yourself. It's a goodbye letter to that version of yourself. And this is really powerful. It's really sad. I know I felt really emotional during this section of the workbook. So you're going to write a letter to yourself, or maybe you're just going to think about it. If you're just listening to this and you're like, I don't have the capacity to do this right now, but write a letter to yourself from you this year, and goodbye to what you carried, what you tried, what you loved, what you get to release, and what you don't have to hold anymore. After doing all these exercises, you should have like more clarity around all of that. But yeah, this is a powerful section. I think that what I really want to drive home with this series is that like this season isn't really about like becoming better. It's really about like becoming lighter and finding clarity and removing from your plate. And you don't have to drag old stories into the new year. You don't have to earn rest. You don't have to like suffer to be worthy. You're allowed to outgrow things in the way that you want to outgrow them, quietly, loudly, looping people in, not looping them in. You're allowed to change your mind if you felt like you were so attached to a particular goal this year and it no longer aligns. It's okay to let that go. You're allowed to soften your life. What can you remove from your plate right now? Like that's the energy we're going into 2026 with. Like we are living gentler lives. We are taking care of ourselves, and we are living in more alignment. So that is what this is designed to do. And I hope that that's what you're getting through the series, through the workbook so far. But even if you never download the workbook, if you never write a single thing down, you just listen to this, I just want to, you know, convey that it's okay and to be gentle with yourself and to give yourself grace. And you're not required to continue holding things that hurt you. Um, you're allowed to just reflect on the year and not feel guilty if it didn't go the way you wanted. And if it went beautifully, but like maybe you're like, I didn't hit this goal or I didn't hit that goal, or like, I want more. Like, you're allowed to feel all of the feelings and you can do this journey in the way that you need. And I hope that you're loving this series and I hope you're loving the workbook. And so I'm going to leave you with this last closing affirmation, which is the affirmation you'll find in the workbook, which is, I release what was never mine to carry. I'm not required to drag old stories into a new year. Yay. But yes, I really hope you're enjoying the series. I hope that the workbook has been revealing for you as you dive into this work. And I hope it's been gentle. And if you're not listening in December, if you're doing this in January or whenever you're doing it, like, I just hope it's as supportive as possible. And if you're enjoying it, and if you're like, I love this workbook, I love this series, and you are thinking of someone that might enjoy it as well, please share this with them. Make sure to send them the link for the workbook or send them the link to this podcast series. And if you're doing the workbook with us, make sure to post about it, tag us, and share what has been coming up for you as well. All of this really helps to like spread the word and to really grow our community, because I want as many people as possible to join us in this journey. So I appreciate all of y'all and thank you for tuning in. Next week, we're going to be diving into reimagining. So we're going to talk all about future self things. We're going to talk all about what we want next year to look like. And it's going to be very different than your typical like goal setting workshop or podcast or whatever tips. So I hope you tune in and we'll talk to you next week.